Hello and welcome to Berwick. Elizabeth I decided to build these new fortifications at Berwick. They have the new kind of cannon warfare in mind, new at the time. So you've got big thick walls behind me over here. You've got little gates that are easier to defend, and the way the walls are designed is to allow for a killing field that protects the gate. Luckily this castle, or fortification should say maybe, didn't see any action, but Elizabeth I's advisors had wanted to rebuild Hadrian's Wall as a means of keeping the Scots out. Now keep in mind that the Percys and Nevilles of northern England had plotted against Elizabeth in order to put Mary Queen of Scots on the throne. Now Elizabeth didn't want to give up any territory to Mary Queen of Scots after such a plot, so she built these fortifications at Berwick, and these ended up being the most costly fortifications in the entire Queen Elizabeth's rule. Everything that she had spent on fortifications didn't come up to the same cost as these fortifications here. Give you an idea of how wide these walls were in order to protect against cannon fire. I hope this mic's worth it. It's making it difficult to hold the camera with different hands. Here you would have had gun placements in order to protect this wall, this gate on the wall, because obviously the gates are the weakest parts of a fortification. The fortification was Italian designed, and the reason why it was Italian designed is because at the period it was the warring city-states in Italy, so they had a lot of experience of protecting towns and cities against cannon fire. This gate here is called the Cowport. It was deliberately narrow for defensive purposes. It was called the Cowport because it was still being used in the 1940s for them to take cows out of town to graze outside the walls. I'm busy cutting the grass here as well. Yeah, you would have had the portcullis, big iron bars, gate. This here was the brass bastion. It was named such because of the cannon that used to be here. It was a brass cannon. You can see it works on different levels. You've got an upper level here for cannons. You've got a lower level. And then you've got the even lower cross-firing level that defended the site of the walls. And this is another cross-firing defensive system covering that section of the wall, which is now a car park. Yeah, you can see the remains of the old medieval wall. that also formed part of this defence system. And it goes up to where Henry VIII's Lord Mount was, and onto the bell tower, and would have gone around the outer wall here to the old medieval castle, forming another ring of defence. Here's quite a nice illustration. You've got the Elizabethan fortifications here, and here's the old medieval fortifications and the castle that attached to the newer Elizabethan ones, forming a second ring of defence. And then to cap it all off, here's the Tweed, but you had water in the moat. The next bastion is called the Cumberland Bastion, named after the Duke of Cumberland in 1746 when he passed through Berwick on his way to what eventually became Culloden. Here we've got a gun placement to demonstrate how it was used for the crossfire to protect the side of the wall. You never saw any action in this fortress because the crowns were unified in 1603, shortly after this was finished being built. I often wonder, could that cannon not reach its own fortifications on the other side? And you see it's much the same as the other bastion. You've got an upper level and a lower level, and the sides are protected. Before it was renamed Cumberland Bastion, this one was known as Middle Mount Bastion, because obviously in the middle. As you can see from here, it's not such a big drop on the other side because of this natural slope which Berwick's built on. Berwick's not just famous for its fortifications and being one of the best preserved walled towns in Britain, but it's also famous for a certain painter. Here's another bastion. This one's called Meg's Bastion, named after the cannon that was here, called Roaring Meg. I guess some stunning views of Berwick. And in distance, pick it up on this camera, you can see Berwick Castle and Vindsvept Castle. And this is underneath the new bridge, built in 1928. Prior to the building of this bridge, they still used the old bridge. Behind me, what looks like a tunnel, is a refrigeration area underground. They used to store the salmon to keep them fresh and cool. You can see it goes quite far underneath. You often find very similar structures near some of the stately homes in Northumberland. Close House has a real big one. Pridder Hall has another one somewhere. I'm not being able to find it yet. This is Berwick Old Bridge. 1603, James VI of Scotland went to England to claim the throne of England and become King James I of England. In doing so, he passed through Berwick, and he wasn't too impressed with the rickety old structure that existed here. So in 1611, work was started to make a stronger structure to combine his two kingdoms. It was completed in 1634. and it's been in use ever since. As you can see, the old bridge is still used by traffic. Next we head up along the quay walls. Behind me is the main guard building. It was built in 1815, but has had a presence here since the 18th century. It housed a small group of soldiers who were responsible for security within the town walls, a bit like a military police. And it also housed a small prison for like drunken soldiers, etc., who they picked up. Apparently you can go in and have a look. This is the Black Hole. This was the prison that they used. It's just a single cell. Mostly for drunken soldiers. Got a small exhibition about the military history of the town. Sergeant Light Company, 25th Foot, King's Own Borders Regiment, 1813. You see the gun placements. This here's Coxon's Tower. It was built in the 1700s to provide Berwick with some defence, gun placement defence that is, from attack from the sea. It was built on top of an earlier earthen fortification from 1533. It was named Coxon's Tower after the person who built it. As you can see, it provides a good covering of Tweed mouth. This here is King's Mount. It was supposed to be another bastion, but it was never completed because with the unification of the crowns 1603 it wasn't deemed necessary to complete it. There was a little bit further work done on it in the 1700s just to bolster the sea defences of Berwick and to bolster it against Jacobite rebellions, but on the whole it wasn't completed in the same way as the other bastions that we've already seen. Here's King's Mount, and here we've got a gateway that was added in the 19th century, 1893. It goes the wrong direction to where I'm going, so I'm not going any further down. Here's the magazine. It was built about 1750 to house 624 barrels of gunpowder. It was specifically designed for that purpose. So inside it's all copper instead of iron, so that was less likely to cause sparks. You can see the supporting structures on the sides of the walls. That's to prevent the walls going outwards should the powder take forcing the powder to go upwards to cause less damage if it ever went off. This is the last of the bastions. This one's known as the Windmill Bastion. In 1858, the French came out with a new battleship that rendered Britain's coastal defences useless. So they built these new concrete gun placements where the gun could circle rather than be stationary. And thus this bastion was named the Windmill Bastion because the guns could rotate. You got a number of placements. You got this one here. I'm not exactly sure how it all went together. You got this one here, which is an arched one, which would have moved the entire gun carriage like that in an arc. Got another one over there behind that seat. You got a further two circular ones over there. Now what I think happened, now I might be wrong on this, I may be talking a load of rubbish. I think these two semicircular ones where the seat is, there's two of them, were the new gun placements built in the 1800s, and these circular ones were batteries built in either the First World War or the Second World War against possible German attack. I was talking to an old soldier not so long ago. He said where the caravans are over there used to be a shooting range for the army that was stationed in Berwick. As you can see on the lower level, you got the normal gun platforms for the stationary guns. You also got the new circular ones, which I think were from one of the wars. And you've got the semicircular ones, which were from the 1800s, I think. I could be wrong about that, so take that with a pinch of salt. I'm not sure you're going to get this because the sun's really bright. There's a photograph from 1906 of the guns, how they were. As you can see, it's the circular ones in 1906. Actually, the circular and the semicircular might have been at the same time, to be honest. They might not have been made separately. Here's Berwick Barracks, built in 1721 after the 1715 Jacobite uprising. It was the first purpose-built barracks in Great Britain since the Roman era. It's free for English Heritage members, and it's £5.40 if you're not a member. And that concludes my tour of Berwick. I hope you enjoyed the trip, and I'll catch you on the next one. Don't forget to comment and like and subscribe, and see you next time. Thank you. Bye.